13th, 2023.
Okay.
And thanks everyone for being here. I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting tonight on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, including our neighbors, the Shannon First Nation. In my personal learning about this land, I acknowledge that we're all treaty people. This land was part of what is known as the Douglas Treaties of 1850. Douglas referred to the treaties as purchase agreements. These were at first verbal agreements. Later, local First Nations leaders marked the blank sheets of paper with their marks, and later, still, the text of the treaties was added. On Wednesday, March 15, Professor John Lutz from UVic will be addressing the topic of the Douglas Treaties at the Metchosin Community House. The evening's being organized by the Metchosin Learning Group and will start at 7 p.m. and all are welcome. So you can see the agenda before you. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda will be approved as stands. There are no presentations tonight. Would anybody like to make a presentation?
Presentation or public
Public participation, excuse me.
Patty Whitehouse, 5311 Rocky Point Road. With your permission, Councillor Gray, I would like to make a quick comment in response to comments made during the previous committee meeting.
Certainly.
Okay. I fully understand Councillor Ebb's frustration with the length of time it's taking to deal with the buffer lands, but I need to point out that the majority of feedback that's been given to council so far, and all of the actual consultation that's been taking place, has been with the people who live in that area. The general public has not had that the opportunity to get information and respond to it. And yet the general public in Metchosin voted for the land swap deal that included the buffer lands. So we really do need that opportunity to provide it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to say anything during public participation? Thank you, Katie.
I'm embarrassed to say, because I would probably know if I read it well enough, but in the original thing where Langford and Metchosin agreed that this land swap would happen, from what I remember reading about it, it made it sound like Langford was the one that was responsible for making sure that the buffer land was protected. And the way that I read it, it meant to me protected from people use. So can't our lawyer explain to us why or why not Langford should be building the tall fence to keep all those wonderful folks that they're going to move into that right next door out of the buffer lands. Otherwise, it's not protected. So why is it that Metchosin is responsible for creating the protection?
Thanks. Would you mind stating your name, Katie?
Katie Nelson, 4596 William Head Road.
Thank you kindly. Would anyone like to respond to Katie right now?
Yeah, very briefly, Katie, I don't recall that. We do have to recognize that the buffer land is in Metchosin, and the land that went to Langford through the land swap is in Langford, and we each have jurisdiction over those areas. So that's as much as I know. And of course there's the covenant and there are obligations around that we're trying to get more clarity on. I don't recall the anything about providing a fence or whatever, but I will keep my eye open
Never been specific about a fence.
Yeah, or maintaining
protection.
Yeah, well, thanks. I will have a look for that as we go through. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shukin.
Just ask
Mayor Little.
through the chair, I just wanted to ask the interim CAO, should I share the information that we heard the other day, or would you prefer me not to?
I think
regarding
it's best if we share that information at a future meeting.
Okay.
With all the information.
So we just have a little bits of information, but she's right, it's not complete, and yeah, I don't want to lead to any conclusions. But we do have some more information. We are continuing those talks with Langford And there'll be more information coming forward.
Excellent. I'm sure everyone will be looking forward to that. More public participation, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hi, Nicole Shukin, Lavon Road resident. And I'm sort of, Councillor Gray, this might also be a little bit indirect, a little bit of a resident.
That's okay.
But it has to do with environment as well. But given that council might be seeking legal counsel or legal advice around the stormwater covenant, I wonder if the fact that a referendum vote, if there might also be some legal advice sought around the fact that, there was like a referendum held around the buffer land and there was no mention of stormwater, the covenant at that time. So I don't know if there might be some political legal confusion there that would actually advantage Metchosin or enable Metchosin to protect the buffer. And I also just want to say, I sure hope that, I can't wait to see a climate plan as part of the, where do we want to see Metchosin in 10, 20 years? I feel like without a climate plan, everything is nested, in my view, within that overarching climate plan. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Eric White, 4290 Metchosin Road. We've got an invasive species problem. The bunnies are getting out of control. They are spreading, and soon they're going to start affecting more farms than just mine.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Katie Nelson, 4596 William Head Road. Those rabbits are affecting much more than the farmland. They affect our natural environment, and they are a real menace to any kind of work that we want to do to do things good for climate change and to do things to protect our environment. They need to be dealt with.
Thank you. Please.
Michelle Jones, 5290 William Head Road. I'm not sure if this is the right place, but it's with regards to the terms of reference for Weirs Beach. The neighbors who have lived there for 35, 40 years will tell you that all the pigs have been moved. We don't know where our property line is between our next door neighbor, the person behind them, and Joanne Knowles' property. They all converge at the back. The property, which was described in 1951 as Lot 35, last year there was a Department of National Defense employee surveying the condition of the fence. And he noticed the construction work going on the other side of the road, and he said, I don't know what they're going to do about the ownership of the strip of land that runs in front of those three properties, because D&D held on to part of it. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but the foreshore is being changed. We just allowed, sometime back in 1984, for a seawall to be built for the RV park. There's cowering. There's waste disposal running down there. We get foamy things on the beach. And so, again, I'm asking for a top-down where we look at not the terms of reference for Weirs Beach, look at it as an environmental problem. That there is beach scouring. I almost stepped on a hypodermic needle this summer. While I was paddling through. The RV park has spilled onto the beach. There's so many boats parked along there that you can't walk in the summer. It's not just the beach access. It's the whole thing that is out of control. And it's a little late to slam the barn door. The horse is out. And so I really think that if we don't just put the brakes on everything and figure out where the boundaries are and who's responsible for what, and whether or not there's a possibility of remediating the beach back to grassland, which was what it formerly was, that protected the beach area, the beach grasses. We're losing a beach every year. It's just being scoured away. And so I would like to suggest that we either approach the Marine Sciences Department at UVic and ask if their students would like to undertake an environmental study of the beach and what can be done to remediate the problems, or that we contact Pearson College and ask them maybe about testing the water that's draining onto the beach. And we really, at a minimum, do need garbage disposal down there. And if the park residents continue to dump garbage on the beach after they've had their barbecues, then we should have a system of billing cleanup back to them, because they have appropriated the entire frontage of the beach in front of the park. So it's an environmental problem as much as a beach access. It's really bad. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Would you like to speak?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
Mayor
was
Liston,
just-
please.
I just thought that would be a really great project for you, being in the environment, because, oh, no, it would be. I mean, he's got the skills and the passion and the connections, because Andy McKinnon had taken up the issue of the waste going on to the beach, the alleged waste going on to the beach from the RV park. And Bev Hall had taken up a lot of these issues with Island Health, and it would be great if the chair of the Environment and Natural Areas Committee could look into that with those, starting with those two connections. I think it is a little bit separate than the Weir Beach Stairs, the actual capital project there, but I do think that is really an important thing to look at in terms of the jurisdiction as well as the potential contamination of the portion.
Well said. So let's move on to the minutes. I think our next item on the agenda is the minutes of the Environment Advisory Select Committee meeting of January 24th, 2023.
Move adoption.
Second?
Councillor Abbott has moved adoption. Councillor Shukin seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? I think that's unanimous. Carried. Next item on the agenda is receipt of minutes from the Metchosin Environmental Advisory Select Committee meeting of January 24th, 2023.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. There's no business arising, and we'll move to reports. So we've got a few things, just very few things to report today. One is that we are going to the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities with two resolutions coming out of the council meeting, one on old growth, ending old growth logging in the province, and another on reducing anchorages off our waters here. And I wondered just to sort out how that works. And the mayor and one of our councillors have been at the AVICC before. We need a spokesperson, I understand, someone to go to the microphone. And I'm wondering, Mayor Little, if you would like to do that on our behalf, or do you want one of us to do it?
Yeah,
There's two resolutions.
I was thinking that you might do that. And so how that works is they have the people that are interested in supporting the motion line up behind the pro mic, and then those who are opposed to the resolution line up behind the con mic. So when you have to pay really attention during it because it moves quite quickly. When that resolution XYZ is called up, then the spokesperson would come, and I thought that would be you. I'm happy to do it, but it would be you, and then I would line up behind to support you, and any of the other councillors that are at the AVICC meeting would line up to support that. And then you, of course, with these, especially the old growth, we will have other people at the con mic, and so that's how it works. And it's the same how it works at UBCM as well.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I'd be happy to do the anchorages one. Councillor Shukin, would you take on the old growth spokesperson role?
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. So we heard a moment ago from a member of the public about the climate action plan, and our planner, following a council meeting, has met now with Pinna Consulting and they've provided us with a kind of a Gantt chart of the activities, and it's been given to us for information, but I wonder if anybody had any comments that I can pass back to the planner. If any consulting, does it look okay to you? You can see from the materials that the process that's proposed here is picking up from where we left off, and there would be some research done by the consulting group, and then the launch of a survey in the community will be announced in the Metchosin News, of course, and on the website, and go out for a little bit, come back, get the survey feedback. The consultants work on that, both on the GHG emission side and on the adaptation side, and then bring that forward to a workshop with council to discuss it. So the public input would be in the form of the survey work and then a meeting with council. But I'm open to any ideas you have, and you can provide them tonight, and or following the meeting we can have provide input independently to the planner. Councillor Shukin.
This looks good to me, and this may go without saying, but it would be great to have a robust community inputs segment as part of the workshops.
Thank you. Mayor Little.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, as you found out by now, things take longer than we think they will. Have you given yourself, I'm not doubting you, I'm just saying, have you given yourself enough timeline or that has the planner given enough time in this? We've got this from now, we're at mid-February. This is May. It comes up quickly. I'm just wondering if you think that's doable. That's fine with me. I just wanted to throw that out there. And then the project management piece, and presumably you mean you're talking about the sustainability people in terms of project management. So the second line there.
Yeah. Well, no worry about doubting me. This is work done by the consultant. And so I'm like you, looking at it and trying to figure out if it makes sense and will work for us, and that's why it's here tonight. I believe the project management line is project management by Pinna Consulting, and presumably by our planner as well, in terms of where they're at and helping out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In terms of the timeline, I guess I thought, heck, end of May looks pretty good, but I don't have an inside look at their work. I've only read the material that we've gotten and spoken with the planner, and she was comfortable.
Can I say one other?
Certainly.
I just wanted to thank the planner as well, not only for the report, but we had asked her at one of the early meetings, and one of the community members had asked if we could have actual names on reports as opposed to just planner, if they could identify them. And this is really helpful now when we go back and look at 2005, 2006, when we're trying to piece together history to actually know the names. So I wanted to thank her for that as well.
Certainly, and her name is Catherine Bazation. The next item on our agenda then, or at least my council's update, is the meeting up with the Western Canada Marine Response Corporation. So you'll recall that I went back to MEASC with some ideas, saying, how about you brief council and help us figure this out? When I got to MEASC, the response was, hey, there's a much easier way to do this. We've looked at the maps. We know the maps fairly well. We know the commitments that the West Coast Marine Response Corporation gave us. And really the question is some technical people getting together, and they can report back to us. The idea is large, in big writing, is we want all the coastline recognized as sensitive, not just this little place and that little place. And it turns out that WCMRC has a different sort of take on things. Well, we'll deal with the sensitive places, and we're more of the view that much of it is sensitive. It all needs to be protected. So what we're proposing now is sort of veering away from where we were before, having ourselves meet with the top dog at WCMRC, and to rather say, let's get the technical people to get back together, and then they can bring us a report and let us know how well they've done. We do know that the WCMRC has added a few spots. It's just which ones are they, and have we covered the whole field or not? Mayor Little.
Thanks for that. I was particularly interested in hearing from them as well. I imagine if the Metchosin Environmental Select Committee, of course, is a public meeting, we'd all be welcome at that meeting. It wouldn't be just the advisory committee, because I was really looking forward to asking them very specific questions. When we had met with them before, they had offered to come back with more fulsome answers to some of those questions, and I'd be really interested to hearing it from them. So as long as the public and the council, of course, that would be also invited to attend that meeting, I see no problem with that.
Just to follow up with what Mayor Little is saying, if I like the idea actually of MEASC meeting with WCMRC because of the technical background, and I would very much like to be a participant of that. I don't think that there are any issues with us attending that meeting. I
think that would be fine. Of course, all advisory committees, any councillor can ever attend all of them. They just can't vote at the meetings, apparently. So everybody's welcome on council. I think the issue might be a little bit that WCMRC people were anxious about the number of people asking questions, and asked, could we please restrict the number of people so we don't have such a free-for-all. I don't know what happened at last meetings, but I'm sure we can arrange something that works for everybody. How about if I move ahead with it, and we'll see where we get, and council will be invited.
I have a question. Okay, so we had WCMRC come to council, do a workshop. There were some questions, not lots, but there was questions. So I would like to see them come back to council, and MEASC come, and whoever in the public come and ask the questions. I prefer it to be at a council meeting, personally. That goes the same as what we've done. The advisory committee is an advisory committee, but I would like to see WCMRC come back to us and follow it in that way.
Okay. Hearing that, one option would be to have the technical people meet, do their thing, and then ask WCMRC to come to a meeting where MEASC presents their report to us. How would that be? Then you'd get the full thing, you'd be in charge of the get-together, but we'd have some of the questions answered beforehand, or at least what's a little bit problematic is, as I took it anyway from the MEASC group, was that until they meet, what advice would they provide us? They're not just sure how far along WCMRC has gone to answer the questions previously provided by council. So, Mayor Little.
Just a note of clarification, I wasn't sure what you meant by technical people. Who was that?
There's a person named Michael Lowry, who I gather is the higher up person, and then he has people who work for him, and it's those people who the MEASC group would like to meet with. And the people in MEASC you're asking about are Gary Fletcher, Anna Hall, and Annie McKinnon. There's a variety of others.
So, through the chair. So, I guess what Councillor Donaldson is saying, if it's at a council meeting, they would also be invited. That would be palatable to them to be able to ask questions of the WCMRC at that meeting. That they want to have do they want to have a closed meeting or with them, or I'm just...
No, we're just trying to, you see, you can have a level of a high level, or you can have a level of people who could have a discussion and sort out the issues and then bring it to the higher level people. I'm suggesting, and MEASC is suggesting, that we have a meeting of the technical people at a certain level. They sort out some of the issues, get the questions clear about what we'd be asking. I was saying that they would come back and report to council. You might be fully satisfied at that point and say, great, thank you, work well done, and on we go. I think Councillor Donaldson is suggesting different than that we have the group all together. And I offered, how about we have the technical people meet, they'll sort things out, and then bring to council sort of the idea, things aren't settled, here are the issues we think you should deal with. Whether you want MCRC at that meeting or not, it's I'm open to any ideas. It's just sort of getting things sorted out at that level.
So may I
Yeah, absolutely.
So going back in history, if I recall, they came to, WCMRC came to council, where they referred to go to, was it a reference to go to our advisory committee, so the advisory committee come back to us? Because that was before I was on council.
I think what happened was the meeting was held with council, and some people I don't know if they were in MIASC or in the audience, asked questions, and that was difficult for MCRC to deal with. It was kind of like, gee, they'd like to have a meeting where there's not so much involvement and so many people asking questions. So we're just trying to get past that so we can actually get a solution here, which is have people meet who know the topic very well and then report back to us to find out if we actually have a reason to meet. Mayor Little.
May I get some, through the chair, may I ask the Deputy Corporate Officer a question?
Yes.
Can you give us some guidance on this, because you were in talks with the WCMRC, Tina?
Yes, so I believe that WCMRC were concerned about, they're happy to meet with council again, but they didn't want it in a workshop forum. They wanted to either deal specifically just with council and not have, you know, the back and forth from the gallery. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could make a decision to revert to our earlier plan. I can go back to MIASC and ask them to put together a report for us to understand the issue so that we could discuss it with WCMRC. If that's your will, we'll do that. Councillor Epp?
Well, I like what you have planned. I mean, judging by the comprehensive set of questions that we had from MIASC regarding the issues with WCMRC and, you know, all the questions they had to pose to them, I think it would be really great, seeing as how we have people like Gary Fletcher who are extremely knowledgeable that can kind of sort through those things and come up with you know, just to get the basic things that, you know, that are really important for council and for the public to know, rather than be bandying the stuff back and forth. I think I like this plan.
Councillor Shukin?
Yeah, and I will just reiterate my support for it as well. I think it is glorious to have people who know the topic to engage with others who know the topic. It's actually quite thrilling, particularly when you don't have to be that faux expert. So, okay, I support it.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a split in the committee, on the council here, on the Environment Committee. Mayor Little?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what the staff had just recommended. I don't want to go against their recommendation because they were in talks with the WCMRC, and I don't want them now to pull out of engagement altogether. I'd like to be respectful of what the staff have just recommended, but that's okay. I mean, we that's what we can do as a council. We can have respectful dialogue and we can debate it. We can disagree, we vote, then we move on. Okay, so it's not a split in council. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to be clear, WCMRC didn't have a problem with one or two MIASC members being present, but they didn't want the back and forth from the gallery, from the public, going back and forth.
So if I can have a motion? Councillor Epp?
I'll move the Environment Committee recommend the council ask MIASC to meet with WCMRC to discuss shoreline sensitivities and protection.
I'd second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? So Councillors Shukin, Epp, and Gray in favor, and Mayor Little and Councillor Donaldson opposed. The motion is carried. Last point of my update was simply that the Timuc Treaty negotiations are ongoing, and we're aware now on March 15 at 4:30 to 7 p.m. there will be an open house held to discuss the modern day treaty negotiations between Canada, the province, and the Timuc Treaty Association. And I just wanted to bring it up tonight so people would mark their calendars. Of course, Mayor Little's representing us on the Timuc Treaty Association discussions, but this has been in the newspaper, and you may have heard already there's been some announcements, and I think there'll be more coming along just to let us know how things are progressing, and this date's an important one for those interested.
And Councillor Gray,
Councillor Shukin.
that is the same day as the John Lutz presentation, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. So what's happening is that for those who are real interested in this, they could attend the open house on Timuck Treaty Association from 4:30 to 7 p.m. and then nip over to the community house, and Professor Lutz will be giving a talk about the modern day treaty early in the day and then the older treaty later in the day.
I'm giving you time.
Yeah, thank you. Gosh, well, there's no correspondence, no bylaws, no other business. I would be happy to have a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Mayor Little. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thanks so much.